fellow Toastmasters, welcome guest. Sometimes you're hiking these trails, and when I was a kid, I grew up fascinated with caves. So when you're hiking these trails, I would come across there's something behind that tree. I can't see quite what it is. I walk over into the bushes. Sure enough, this looks like a hole in the ground that goes deeper than just a hole. This could be a really interesting cave. But, right now I'm missing an important thing, a flashlight. And a flashlight is one of these important things in a cave that you need to have along with you, because I hate to break it to you, caves are dark. Now, I, growing up as a kid, wanted to explore caves. But if you're going to explore a cave, you need to prepare properly. Now, the biggest thing I just mentioned, you need a flashlight. And I would prefer a couple of flashlights and some extra batteries, because the worst thing in the world is getting stuck down in a cave and you can't see your hand in front of your face. Now, are you good there? You good? You okay, Don? I'm okay. Okay, good. We'll continue on. Now, beyond that, I also like to have water with me, because you don't know how long you're going to get going down there. I like to have a little bit of food, and sometimes I need a rope. So a rope is a handy thing to have along. A backpack is nice to put all this stuff into. Well, when I was in high school, we had heard about this cave, a buddy of mine and I, that went for miles and miles and miles. You with me here, Tudor?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, good. So we were excited about this cave because we had never been in it. We had been up to the opening of it. But this thing that supposedly goes for miles, and it's a wild cave. Now, there was one problem we had, and that problem was it was posted by the BLM, nobody's supposed to go in this cave. We thought, that's more of a suggestion than a rule. And we decided, okay, we're going to make our preparations to go in this cave. And I'm going to show you. Hello. Can we delay this till after the meeting, please? Thank you. We decided we were going to do our preparation, and I just happened to bring along today what our preparation consisted of. We each had our water bottle in our pack. We had, most importantly, 2 flashlights. So we had one and a backup. And then we had our most important piece of equipment for this entire expedition, bolt cutter. Because not only did the BLM have this cave posted, they had built this heavy iron gate across the entrance, and it was locked with a padlock. So this caused us one other problem in our preparation, though. We are about to break the law. So we didn't really want to tell anybody what we were about to do. We decided to risk going it alone in this cave we'd never been into, with nobody knowing where we were or when we were supposed to be back. It seemed like a really good idea at the time. We packed all our stuff, which wasn't very hard because we didn't have much stuff. All those ropes and first aid kits and things I talked about.
You're saying that you voluntarily just entered a cave, not telling anybody where you're going to be, and I mean, just think if you'd broken a leg in there, what the manhunt would have been. You would have involved thousands of people looking for you and everything. This isn't a story about something.
This is
illegal.
I totally agree with you, Gary. And I think if you'll hang with me, for the rest of this speech, you'll see the lesson that I'm putting out there. Are we good? Okay. We good? Okay. So we headed out we packed it up in my little Volkswagen Bug. We took this dirt road. We couldn't get all the way to the cave, but we hiked in the rest of the way. And when we got there, the opening was about as big as this room, but it was a hole in the side of the hill. and this is not where the gate was. We had to climb down some shale, and we get down in there. Then once we got under the overhang, John Lucero, my buddy, would turn on it. He turned on his flashlight. I was reserving mine for emergencies. And then we found our way to where it narrowed down, and here was the big gate. I pulled out my handy chompers, and John shined the light on the lock. Problem solved. I put the bolt cutters over behind a rock. I tossed the lock aside. We opened the gate, and John led the way forward. And as he was moving forward, he would shine the light in front of him. So I had to stay pretty close to him because his light, well, the light didn't really spread that far. And we started in, and the roof of the cave had come down till you could put your palm up on the top of the cave. But we didn't do that because it's covered with bats. Now, the bats were nice and calm. They weren't flapping around or anything, so we continued on. Once we had to get dug down a little bit, but once we got past there, the floor kind of fell away, and it was just a big shale slope, and we couldn't see the bottom of it. And the room had opened out, and as we walked down, of course, the ceiling stayed higher and higher until finally the flashlight wouldn't show the ceiling. And we made our way forward, and when we got down to the bottom of that slope, the terrain changed until it was just red clay. And just beyond the red clay part of the slope, there was this lazy river that blocked our path. Now, it wasn't a fast-flowing river. It was kind of glass-like in structure, on the surface, so it would reflect our light. And we decided it's only about 12 feet across. I think we can make it. And John was in the lead, so I let him go first. And he walked down into the water, and I could hear him. So I figured it's probably not that warm. And John got down in there, and he made his way across, and I got down in there, and sure enough, it wasn't freezing cold, but it was cold. And we were both dressed like this. When we got to the other side, we encountered another problem. The bank is that clay stuff, and it wasn't all that steep, but we were sopping wet, and that clay got really slick. And when John started clawing his way up there, he slipped and he fell back. I kind of caught him a little bit. His head went under, but at least the flashlight stayed up. And so we still had a working flashlight. I didn't have to go for the one that's in my plastic bag in the pack. And we continued on. Well, we managed to scramble our way, claw our way up to the top of this high little mound of clay that blocked the passage then. And we got to the top, and we went, oh crap, because guess what? That little meandering river went like this, back across, and we just had to go down and cross and climb again. 2 miles later, crossing and recrossing and scrambling up these slopes, we were covered head to toe in red, slimy clay. And this was getting a little bit old to me personally. And I told John, if this cave doesn't get better, or if we don't get to some dry ground soon, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go back. And my buddy John, who is a big-time cave crawler, he said, look, up there at the top of that slope, I see a side passage. I think we can get into it. And I looked up there, and there's this kind of crack in the wall up there, but it did look like it went for a ways, and it was not in the water. I said, okay, I'll give this thing a try. We got up there. John shined his light into there, and it was the most amazing thing. There were these little, about 1 to 1/2 inch crystal stalactites and stalagmites all over the place. And this place, he's shining his light around. It looks like a kaleidoscope of colors just reflecting back at us. It's beautiful. I said, finally, we're getting to something interesting. And we walked in there. John was leading the way again. And unfortunately, we were breaking some of these things, crunch, crunch, with our shoes. But we tried not to break too much. We were civic citizens that way. As we made our way forward, the roof started getting lower, though. So we were walking hunched over. And after a while, it got to the point where we're having to crawl like this. And these little sharp things were not my friend at this point. I was bloody on my knees, my palms were skinned up, my shins were skinned up. if you raised too high, you'd hit your head on some of them or on the back. So after a little bit of that, I told John, okay, I've had it with this place. I've had all the enjoyment I want for the day. Plus, I'm getting hungry. We forgot to bring any food. And John says, wait a second. I think I see there's a hole over there. See that? On the side where I don't see any crystals, and it looks like it curves back towards the main cavern. And it looks like it goes down, like towards the water. And I thought, okay, well, I'll give it a try. Let's go see. And we crawled over there, and it was still a crawl space, and it did go down pretty steeply, but it did look like it went back towards the main part of the cavern. And I thought, okay, lead on. So John crawls down in there, I'm crawling down in there, we're crawling along. All at once, it's getting a lot tighter. And then the crawling becomes like this, and you got to turn your head sideways like this. The good part was I didn't go sliding down this steep slope because it was too narrow, and the friction on my back and my front at the same time kept me from sliding down. The bad part was I suddenly realized if we don't find a place to turn around or an outage, I don't think I can wiggle backwards up this slope in this narrow space. So I told John, you better find us a place to turn around or I'm going to kill you before I die. Anyway, I'm standing here. We clearly made it out of there. We found a place to turn around. We crawled our way back up, made our way back through the crystals, got a little misoriented on our way out, and then I was wishing, I wish we'd have brought some chalk because we could have marked arrows on the rocks pointing back toward the entrance. And caves can get confusing, even when there's mostly just one main passage. But we got out, and that brought me to a very big realization that has paid off in further parts of my life, and it's one of the main things that Toastmasters teaches. Prior preparation prevents poor performance. We prepared, but we prepared half-ass. Our little bag of tricks was no match for that cave, and we violated a central rule of any extraordinary expedition. Let somebody know where you're going and when you should be back so that they can send rescue, even though it's going to cost us a ton of money, because those type of things will save your life. And in Toastmasters, Toastmasters preaches preparation, because if you're going to stand up and talk in front of a crowd, you're going to get a little nervous. But if you're properly prepared, that nervousness will just add energy to you, and you'll get used to it. And it's a lot of work, but if you do that preparation, it'll get you through it. And that's generally true in all of life. So, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guest, take that to heart, prepare for whatever you do, put in that extra work, and it'll pay off big time. Madam Toastmaster.